Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to Filibuster here on the Nerd Party. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to spend the next hour or so listening to us discuss Mission Impossible Fallout. I'm your co-host Alice King, and joining me today is the hammer to my scalpel. It's Lee Hutchison. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. I wish I could pretend on the other side I was doing that cool thing that Henry Cavill does with his arms, but you'll just have to take my word for it on this audio feature.
That's all I've been doing for the last hour to prep myself, to pump myself up for this talk, is to do that. So before we light the fuse on our review, I always seem to say light the fuse for some reason in Mission Impossible, even though it's probably more metaphorical than literal. Let's just briefly sort of recap on what else we've been watching this week. So you went to see, I think it's Apostasy this week, is that correct?
Yeah. It was a movie that kind of came out of really nowhere. I just heard a little bit of buzz about it, and I saw it was screening at the film house, so I picked up a ticket to go see it, and I didn't really actually know what to expect. Obviously, with the title Apostasy, I was thinking of obviously a religious aspect, but it was, it's definitely going to be up there with one of the best films I've seen this year. For those kind of that haven't heard about it, it's a Curzon release, so with them they do simultaneous releases on home video, streaming, and in cinemas as well. So it gives people a kind of chance, no matter where they are in the country, to see the movie. And it's filmed shot in Manchester, and it's about 3 women in a family, and they're all faithful Jehovah's Witnesses. But when one of them becomes pregnant, that's considered a transgression within the church, and she is ostracized from the church. And for me, and probably a lot of people kind of watching a movie like this, we probably have the kind of image in our head of sort of Jehovah's Witnesses as those people that we see standing outside train stations and shopping malls with the little booklets. But this really kind of takes us back behind the curtains and sort of what a mundane but kind of interesting sort of society it is in terms of the rules. That there was things that I genuinely never knew. For example, that one of the girls in the plot of the movie, she was given a blood transfusion as a child, but that is against the religious rules, that it can only be the pure blood that you're allowed with it. And it's things like that, like I was completely caught off but guard by, and their reaction to people that transgress within the church in terms of, say, someone having a child out of wedlock or out with the church, and just sort of their social and cultural norms. And it really was quite shocking in a way. And I noticed a sort of trend when, I don't know about you, but sometimes after I've seen a film, I naturally go into the Letterboxd app, hit the button, give it, a rating. And I noticed I'd rated it a bit higher than kind of a lot of people had. And I'm wondering if the people that kind of maybe saw the first wave of movie before the release maybe had watched it on screener copies or something before reviewing, and they enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, but it just seemed that little bit of rating a bit less. And I think with this kind of movie, I think it is actually, even though it's just sort of largely in rooms and people talking and quite kind of dark in the way it's shot, showing kind of how mundane life is, the shock and surprises and twists and the insight into this religion that we kind of maybe all just sort of thought was, that's just another one, really shocked audiences. I could hear points people gasping and people feeling frustrated and a little bit angry with what they were watching on the screen, and that wasn't with the quality of the film, it was what was unfolding before their eyes. And the writer director, Daniel Coccajalia, I hope I've pronounced that name rightly, I'm brutal at these things, he was a member of the Jehovah's Witnesses church, and he was writing from his own experiences and things he'd seen, and it was really quite eye-opening. It's one of these movies that, you think of some movies, things like Going Clear, Louis Theroux's My Scientology movie, where we kind of see the behind the scenes of these kind of religious teachings, and we look at them and sneer at them and are shocked and surprised. And I think this kind of movie shines that light on the Jehovah's Witness church, and it's not an anti-religious movie, it is just shining a light on almost the day-to-day life that these faithful people undergo, and how challenging that is. And I would highly recommend it. If you can see it in the cinema, if it's still there, go see it. And if not, definitely check out on like the Curzon app or a rental service that you can get on things like your Virgin Media, and they have apps and so on as well. I would highly recommend Apostasy. It was genuinely a great cinematic experience to be there and feel those strong emotions. It's quite rare to be provoked like that.
I know, yeah. I think when you were talking about reviews and stuff, it was something I think I brought up when we were talking about Mute, and I wondered if there was a difference in the ratings between people who had watched it on a screener on like an iPad or a laptop or something to do the initial wave of reviews before it comes out, against people who maybe watched it on a big screen TV or their projector at home and stuff like that, who were able to see it on a much larger screen. Because I think that was certainly a film that benefited. I mean, it never did get a cinematic release over here in the UK, but it certainly won. Annihilation, another one that managed to get a lot of groundswell and actually managed to get a few screenings here. But I think it's something that, no one makes a film specifically to be shown on an iPad or a laptop, wherever they want it to be seen on a big screen. So I think it is great that Curzon have this thing where they do try to get it as many sort of independent cinemas as possible. It's probably not something that's ever going to come to the multiplexes, but people can get out there and see it, and if they can't, then there is the option of on demand. I don't know if Curzon on demand is available in America or not, but it's certainly worth trying to check out in America if you can. But I know I was ranting on Twitter earlier today about the fact that Hearts Beat Loud, one of my most anticipated films of the year, is nowhere to be seen in Aberdeen on its opening day, and there are 4 cinemas and 27 screens, and it's just a shame that these films take a while to come down. I think Apostasy as well is another one that, and First Reformed are films which I'm not going to get to see for about a month or so after release, until they finally make it up here into the local independent. Perhaps they should prioritize those over Mamma Mia, just saying.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're an independent cinema, support independent films first. I mean, people have got no shortage of being able to see Mamma Mia on the big screen. So, it's definitely one I'm going to check out. But I managed to catch Extinction this week, basically due to the fact that there was very little in the cinema which I hadn't already seen. I managed to catch this on Netflix. I think it was released on Friday, and I caught it over the weekend. It's a science fiction film by Ben Young, who directed Hounds of Love earlier this year, sort of Australian sort of domestic horror. And this is about a man played by Michael Pena who is having weird dreams about an alien invasion. And it's a slightly generic story in that you basically, from that small setup, you can probably guess where it's going to go. Nobody believes him. They think he's all crazy, but guess what? It turns out there is an alien invasion coming. It's an okay film. The performances are good. Lizzie Kaplan plays the frustrated wife. She's no stranger to alien invasions, having been in Cloverfield and the Marvel one-shot set after the Avengers. But I was just watching it thinking, this is okay, it's nothing special. But then something happens sort of between the sort of second and third act that made me rethink everything that I'd seen before. And it's actually a very, very clever twist on the genre. And I thought, fair play, and actually really enjoyed it for the sort of the last half hour of the film. I just hope that, again, sort of using this as a platform for getting people to watch it, I would highly recommend just giving it a go, because I can imagine if it's the sort of thing that people go into blind and just put on Netflix after, 10, 20 minutes, if they're not enjoying it, they'll just skip it and go on to something else. But please try and stay with this one to the end, because I think you'll be pleasantly surprised with what happens.
Yeah, I definitely need to check that out. I haven't had the chance to watch much in the way of kind of movies in the past week. It's been a very busy one, but kind of the next week sort of kind of is a bit more quieter, so hopefully I'll get the chance to dive into this. And if people don't enjoy this Michael Pena movie, there's always another one just around the corner.
Exactly. Well, I mean, you should have more free time on your hands now that Love Island's over, shouldn't you?
Exactly. Officially ended last night, and thank God Danny and Jack won. So we'll have to see if we can get a Love Island interview to add to our portfolio of ones on here on Filibuster.
Indeed, for anyone in America who's listening to this and doesn't know what Love Island is, we can catch you up on Twitter. But essentially, it featured the winning couple featured Danny Dyer, a young woman who is the daughter of the Danny Dyer, who's so self-obsessed that he called his daughter after himself. But yeah, that's a whole other story. But we're not here to talk about Love Island. We're here to talk about Mission Impossible Fallout. The sixth film in the Mission Impossible franchise. That's 6 films since it was first released 22 years ago. One of the most long-standing franchises, I think, going at the moment. And it's had rave reviews across the board, currently sitting at around 97-98% on Rotten Tomatoes. But did it live up to the hype? I tweeted around about, I think it was in May when I saw the second full trailer, that this might indeed be the best blockbuster of the summer. I'll leave my judgment until afterwards. What did you think, Lee?
Yeah, I really, really liked it. I saw it 3 weeks ago now. So I was lucky enough through just a boring Facebook competition that they were doing some regional premiere as well. The premiere down in London was happening, and it nearly spoiled my kind of experience of it. I managed to convince my girlfriend to come along to the screening. She'd never seen any of the Mission Impossible movies, and I was like, "Oh, come on, you're a +1. It'll be fun. It's a nice early start. We can be done." So we had to be there for 6 o'clock, and then at 6 o'clock nothing happened, and we'd been in the cinema for about 15 minutes by that point. I was like, "Oh, okay, right." And then it was 6:45 before anything happened, and we started getting footage from the premiere where people were being interviewed on the red carpet, giving the usual, "Oh yeah, happy to be here," and "Oh, the film was great, Tom Cruise is fantastic," and that went on for 45 minutes, and then people were getting frustrated. They thought they would be halfway through the movie by this point, and then they turned round, and then Alex Zane went, "Well, thank you very much for all the people around the UK that have joined us for these interviews, and prepare for Mission Impossible." And like the people in this screening that were tired, some people were leaving and getting a bit annoyed, were like, they actually cheered that it was the end of the red carpet. And then he turned around and went, "And join us soon, as I will be introducing the cast and crew on stage and doing Q&A." And like they had been tweeting on the screen, "Send in your questions," and people were just apocalyptic. They're like, "Oh my god, I just want to watch the movie." Like this was like nearly 8 o'clock by this point. So we had darkness for another 15 minutes, trying to convince my girlfriend not to go home, and she was like, "I'm not even interested in this movie, I'm just bored waiting," and I'm trying to be positive, "Come on, the film will be soon, it'll be good fun, trust me," and then it went dark and was like, "Here we go with the Q&A," and then it was the Paramount logo came up, so they had just skipped the Q&A. So I don't know what happened, but God, it felt good. So we were able to dive in the movie, and to sum up, almost this general audience, like this was someone that had never seen the movies before and was pissed off at the prospect of now watching this movie, and had a terrible time waiting for the movie. You could actually have watched Apostasy and had a toilet break and potted about in the period of time that you had to wait for this movie. And she came out and I thought that was fantastic and wanted to see all the other movies. So if someone can like that movie that much, with that much going against it, having such a terrible pre-experience, then someone like myself, I enjoyed it so much, with even trying to keep calm and be reassuring. I found it to be such an enjoyable experience. And while I think some of the hype has been a bit too much, a little bit, it's definitely one of the best films of the summer for action, adventure, spectacle, for ambition, and just sheer enjoyment. I thought it was fantastic.
Well, it sounds like you nearly had a Mission Impossible of your own, actually trying to see
Exactly.
it to me. But I mean, yeah, these red carpet things can be excruciating, and especially when everything's running late and not running to time. Because I mean, yeah, with a 2.5 hour long film, to have to sit through all that is quite something. But no, I mean, I saw it on opening day. I was just too knackered to go along to the midnight screening, so went along first as soon as work finished on the Wednesday. Caught the screening, and yeah, for me, I was right in my tweet. It is the best blockbuster of the summer for me. It just holds together from beginning to end, just sort of action, and people have said it's one of the best action films of all time. It's the best action film since Mad Max Fury Road, I would say it possibly is. Yeah, I think it's maybe not as steadily just. I mean, Mad Max Fury Road is just basically one long car chase from beginning to end. This has some points to sort of catch your breath in between, but for me, I thought it was just sensational. And for me, this is a franchise which gets better and better as it goes along. I think, with of course that small dip near the start for Mission Impossible 2. I loved pretty much every single moment of it. I thought it was fantastic, and yeah, Tom Cruise is back for me. I think I'll say I'm a Tom Cruise apologist. I've always liked him. I think he's one of the true sort of great movie stars. That can sometimes be a backhanded compliment when you say if he's a movie star, he's basically just playing Tom Cruise the whole time. But I did note down his top 5 performances which aren't in Mission Impossible films since the Mission Impossible franchise started. And I've got like The Last Samurai, Collateral, Jerry Maguire, Tropic Thunder, and Magnolia.
Thank
so he does
God
have a bit of range.
Magnolia. I was very concerned I would have to discredit this list.
Oh yes, no. I was wondering, will Les Grossman be at the top? No, it's still Magnolia for me. But as I said, I'm an apologist. My wife isn't a big fan, and I offered her the chance to come and see it, but she said no. But Tom, I am out here for you. You don't know what it's like to be me out here for you. It is an up at dawn, pride-swallowing siege I will never fully tell you about, but I will continue to champion him. I think, he sets out to make movies that entertain people, and in some ways he's similar to The Rock, I guess. And I did see something that someone asked Tom, when are you and The Rock going to star in a movie together? And he said, oh yeah, no, let's make that happen. So with the wonder of Twitter, we'll probably see The Rock might get inserted into the Mission Impossible franchise soon and become due to that franchise what he did to the Fast and Furious one. Although how he can take this to even bigger heights, I have no idea.
I know, it's just I'm a huge Tom Cruise fan because I find that the problems that people have with Tom Cruise aren't anything to do with him as Tom Cruise the actor. They're sometimes to do with Tom Cruise the person. And when I hear people criticise him, it's like, yeah, he's a smug prick, or his connections with things like Scientology. I can't believe that's now the third time it's been mentioned unrelated in this episode to anything. But it's just things like, well, if we took everyone's religious views in Hollywood and kind of threw them off for wacky thoughts and beliefs, then there wouldn't be many other actors left to get involved in. And I just think he's just this idea that he bounced about on a couch one time. Yeah, we've all been daft like that, but I think he's just such a force of nature. And I think when you see like it's a Tom Cruise movie, like in the past maybe 15-20 years plus, that he picks and chooses his projects very carefully. And if I see him attached to a movie, then there's something about it where I think, yeah, if Tom Cruise is in it, what's got him in it? And I know there's the exception of The Mummy, and these things can happen, but like that is an anomaly compared to what he's been involved in the past 20 odd years and stuff. And I just think he is due a pass for that. He throws himself so much into a film that's impossible not to enjoy and think that it's going to be a bit of a spectacle. Like that's really rare to get.
No, absolutely, yeah. I mean, The Mummy, I think, just looking at his IMDb just now, The Mummy is probably like a rare sort of misstep at the moment. I know there's some people who are not that keen on the Jack Reacher films, but then again, it's more again about Tom Cruise the person and the fact that he's apparently the wrong build to be Jack Reacher, which is maybe why. But I mean, Edge of Tomorrow I thought was fantastic. It was great, but you're right, he is actually quite selective. I was looking, he's only done 44 films in 38 years, which isn't that many. So I mean, he is quite choosy, but I mean the fact that let me try and do some maths. That's around about between 1/7 and 1/8 of those films have been Mission Impossibles. It's clearly, it's a franchise that he loves, and it's coming back to and works hard to, make sure that they continually manage to. It's like, how are we going to top it? How are we going to top it? I'll hold on to the side of a plane this time. How am I going to top that? I'll jump out of a plane. I don't know what. He learned to fly a helicopter for this one. And there's nothing he won't do for this franchise. I mean, the line that gets mentioned a lot in the film, the greater the suffering, without a great suffering there cannot be peace, and the greater the suffering, the greater the peace. And the suffering in this one was the fact that he broke his leg filming a stunt, jumping off a building, hitting the side of another building, finished the shot, hobbled off, and then they took 8 weeks off, and then he's back into it again, carrying on. But it was totally worth it. And I think but he didn't suffer the most from this film. There was someone else who suffered a lot more, and that was Justice League.
Yeah,
because we're going to get onto the big Henry Cavill mustache-shaped elephant in the room, the mustache that he was not allowed for contractual reasons to shave off during Mission Impossible so he could reshoot some of Justice League. And you know what? I'm glad that he kept the mustache, because I think it was totally worth it. I thought Henry Cavill was great in this, and the sort of the perfect foil for Tom Cruise and Ethan Hunt. And do we go into spoilers yet?
Yeah,
it's safe to say that the trailer set up that he will be an antagonist to the IMF team, and the fact that he's a CIA assassin and he's been ordered to kill Ethan Hunt if he goes rogue. So, but there's lots of shots of them sort of shooting at each other from helicopters and things like that. But what did you think of the addition of Henry Cavill to the franchise?
Yeah, I'm one of those people that I get a bit frustrated sometimes. Like Henry Cavill in things like this, The Man from U.N.C.L.E., is such a charismatic, exciting guy. Like he's just really cool, and you can't help but kind of smile, just that little wink and Boy Scout look he's got. But he is jacked up, and kind of during that red carpet thing, obviously the girlfriend's annoyed, but she was lusting a bit for Henry Cavill, so I became very nervous about spending 2.5 hours in Henry Cavill's company. But I think he's just wonderful, and I think it makes you more frustrated of what a Superman he could have been, if they'd really played to his strengths and not just sort of stripped him of that and made him brood. And he's just so good in this movie. And one thing I learned from the red carpet Q&As, and I'm sure it's well publicised now, was that when they were doing the shots for this bathroom scene, he did that, during one of the takes, he did that thing where it's now in every single trailer he does that kind of reload with his hands and fists, and he did that, and then in the next take he didn't do it, and Christopher McQuarrie was like, "Oh, you got to do that again." He's like, "Do what?" "Yeah, when you turn your hands into gun reloads," and then he did it, and it's just little moments like that give the character so much kind of memorable experiences, and he becomes this sort of villain at the end that we expect him to, and it is a little bit kind of pantomime, but it's all in kind of the good nature of Mission Impossible. But one thing has been slightly ruined for me. There is a gif of him doing the reload with the fists, and you notice that he, in the first shot, he doesn't have a pocket on his chest, and then the second one he does. So it's I can't see that cool scene now without thinking of that gif. It's been ruined for me.
I know, I was watching that the other day. He somehow, through sheer force of will, he basically, when he cocks his upper arms, he basically manages to grow more of a beard and suddenly create a shirt pocket in his shirt. Now, I'm sure it's just the lighting and the fold of the shirt and the lighting on his face that makes it look like he's got more of a beard, but it's just incredible to think that he just, with a cock of his fists, he suddenly managed just to create a shirt. So we'll share the gif, but if you haven't seen it already, you'll have seen it, but you won't have noticed just exactly. But once it's pointed out, you can never you can never unsee it. So, but I guess it's a good point to sort of go into, because that's one of the sort of first big sort of action scenes. Well, I say that actually it's not, because there's actually the halo jump and stuff like that. But that bathroom fight is probably up there with the sort of hand-to-hand combat scenes of the last few years. Someone said it basically makes Casino Royale look like it was shot in a Portaloo. It's the fact when a guy gets flipped over a shoulder and through the mirrors and stuff like that. It is just brutal. Obviously, not as much blood and gore as you would get in something like The Raid, because this is a 12A, but it still felt proper. You still felt sort of every punch and stuff like that. What did you think of that particular sequence?
It was so cool. It's one of these ones, like, I don't know about you, we've never really kind of discussed it. It's like, I am a huge James Bond fan. And, like, Bond in the past few years, maybe apart from Skyfall, has always been reactionary to what else has been going on. You know, you see something like the Bourne movies really kicked into gear, like the Daniel Craig era, they were kind of looking to ape on that. And then you sort of see some of the big set pieces and scope of the Mission Impossible movies reflected in Spectre, but not as well. And, you know, I love Danny Boyle, I trust Danny Boyle, but a movie like this really piles the pressure on James Bond to do something differently. Like, if I was, I'm not turning this into a James Bond thing, but if this next James Bond movie, they've got to play to like an older Daniel Craig strengths, make it small, make it intimate, make it savage. But now, as their natural inclination will be, is to go big and go all out with action set pieces that people will remember and talk about as if Bond has to only be that. They are now under a serious lot of pressure because a movie like Mission Impossible, like, gone are the days where it would, get a decent amount of the box office and people might remember one of these set pieces, but like, you only have to look at what this movie has made in the past week alone to know this is making an impact, and it's growing. It seems to be getting bigger and bigger as a franchise in terms of people coming along to it, talking about it. And that puts pressure onto Bond because people expect Bond to be the pioneer. Whereas, as you say, it looks like it, one of the best scenes in Bond in the past few years, which it was a great scene, it is a great scene, just looks like small in comparison. And that's the pressure now on Danny Boyle and Bond is, how do they follow something like Mission Impossible? Especially, scenes like this just alone.
I know, I think, well, one thing Danny Boyle needs to do to take Bond in a different direction is, certainly given the past year or so, is probably in James Bond's treatment of women will probably be slightly different as to what it has been before. But I don't see any reason why they can't go with the big sort of action sequences, as long as Daniel Craig is fit enough. But he's 50 just now, and Tom Cruise is 56 in this film and still doing all this stuff. So age is not a barrier, really. That's the other thing that's just going around at the moment, as on Twitter a lot, is the fact that Tom Cruise apparently just now in Mission Impossible is the same age as Wilfred Brimley was in Cocoon.
Oh my word.
It's like, what? Mind blown. But I think it will be interesting to see. Yeah, definitely when the Bourne films came out, we definitely saw a change in James Bond for the Daniel Craig ones. I think there will be a change in focus and the direction for the films, and we'll just have to see how that goes. I mean, again, a lot of it, certainly with the Daniel Craig ones, they went back to more sort of practical stunts. I mean, I know that it was Die Another Day, they had the invisible car, and they had the sort of snowboarding, sort of parachuting down the side of a glacier or something as well, which was terrible CG. So they tried to make it more grounded, more real. So hopefully, if this rubs off on it and we get a more exciting Bond, then that's all for it, I think. And I know Henry Cavill at the moment is still being touted as the guy to replace Daniel Craig, and basically on this effort, I'd be happy for him just to wear the tuxedo, I think.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, I think it's one of those ones. I'm somewhat keen on Dan Stevens myself, but yeah, Henry Cavill obviously with Man from U.N.C.L.E., showing the charming swagger side, the cool spy, and then something like this, the pumped up, he can do these action scenes, he can really punch the hell out of someone. He is building a portfolio to show, hey, I can be this James Bond if you want me to, because this is obviously going to be Daniel Craig's last one. Spectre should have been his last one, but he's certainly setting the standard for anyone else that's looking to compete for that role when it comes out.
Yeah, no, I mean, as much as I love Tom Hardy, I don't really see him in the role. I think I might have tagged Dan Stevens. I think when The Guest came out a few years ago, I thought, yes, this guy could make a very good Bond. But I guess we'll see. But Henry Cavill was one of the newcomers to this, and I think I put it as similar to, there's a line in Unbreakable where you get two types of villains. You get the one who fights the hero with his fists, and one who fights the hero with his mind. And this is a returning villain, Solomon Kane, played by Sean Harris. And this is actually the first of the franchise where we've actually really had sort of returning characters beyond the sort of central IMF team in the villain, and also in this is the first female beyond Michelle Monaghan's statue returning, Rebecca Ferguson's Elsa Faust. So what did you think of the decision? Actually, the director as well was the first director to actually direct two Mission Impossible films as well. So were you happy to see these characters return?
I think especially for Christopher McQuarrie, at first it was announced, like, I thought Rogue Nation was a brilliant, action movie. I thought it was fantastic. But I wasn't happy at all, even until opening night, that he was returning, because I believe that the originality of the Mission Impossible franchises, it's always a different director with a different vision. And I was annoyed that they had broken what was their number one rule. It was an unspoken rule, but I think of the fact that he went so wildly different with the cinematography, the score. It didn't feel like a Christopher McQuarrie movie or a second bite of the apple. He really made it different, so I was happy he was returning. I think Rebecca Ferguson was brilliant in Rogue Nation, so again, happy to see her. And with the Solomon Kane, really happy with Sean Harris. I just think he's he's just got such a memorable voice and look, and it was just the fact that he was in this, and I think he really adds to it. I could have taken or left that he, the character in it. I think he's a presence in the movie. He pushes some things a little bit, but I think that they could easily have inserted a new villain into the piece. But I think with Henry Cavill, sort of does take that kind of mantle from him. But he, for all the time that he genuinely is in the movie, I was fine enough with it. It's always good to get Sean Harris in a movie. What about yourself?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I like the fact that this was sort of continuing the story, and I thought that Sean Harris has such a unique sort of face, voice, and just sort of manner. It's no offense to him, but he just always has the sort of villainous, creepy quality. He'll never probably be a romantic lead. I can never really unsee him from all the films that I've seen him in the past, such as Creep and things like that. He's and Harry Brown and stuff like this. He's just sometimes a really vicious, horrible person, but yeah, no, it was nice to see someone sort of trying to mess emotionally with Ethan Hunt and do that, because one thing for me, I think, about the franchise, as good as it is on the action and stuff like that, sometimes the villains aren't particularly memorable. I managed to rewatch Ghost Protocol and Rogue Nation before seeing this one, and the villain in Ghost Protocol wasn't really all that. I didn't think. I've gone blank on his name. The guy.
I can't remember. I barely remember him being in the movie until he's like throwing around the case with Ethan Hunt in the car park. I all I remember is that he was Indian. He wanted to fire some nuclear weapons. I genuinely can't remember him at all.
Michael Nyquist. Yes, he was in Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. That was it. I didn't really think he was. I mean, for me, as good as the guys in this one were, Philip Seymour Hoffman is the greatest villain to ever be in a Mission Impossible film. And I rewatched that scene today, just the scene on the plane where it's like Ethan Hunt's trying to interrogate him and he's just having none of it and just going, do you have a wife, girlfriend? I'm going to find her, I'm going to hurt her, I'm going to hurt you, then I'm going to kill her in front of you and stuff like that. And it's just, he just doesn't give a shit what Ethan Hunt thinks. He's like, every question he tries to answer, he's like, no, I'm not playing your game, I'm going to do this. And he's the complete opposite of what you would expect a villain to be in one of these big action scenes, but it works perfectly. And yeah, for me, that'll never be topped, I don't think. And
I think he's so good. And like, I always wondered with Ethan, I would have liked to have seen him as his character in Punch Drunk Love, insert him into the cast, where you just have his scenes where he's just like, shut up, and just when he's threatening Adam Sandler. That's just a perverted thing I've always wanted to see.
I would take any of Philip Seymour Hoffman's characters and put them into any vote. Like Along Came Polly. That's not a great film, but I think he's so funny in that. Just like there's attempts to play basketball and just sort of go swish when it hits off the backboard and stuff like that. It's just so funny. But I mean, yeah, he's the top for me. But I think the sort of two sort of opening up the sort of two villains it does sort of feel more like a Bond film where you've got the big bad and you've got the henchman sort of thing. So I think it did sort of work perfectly for that. And I again was glad to see Rebecca Ferguson back, because that's something. I mean, the female members of the IMF have always sort of come and gone. I think you've had Maggie Q, Paula Patton. I thought made a good impression in Ghost Protocol, but we never heard from her again. And I think Rebecca Ferguson was just fantastic in this. She was fantastic in the previous one. And for me, how much Rebecca Ferguson is enough in these films? Never enough.
Yeah,
right.
I did want a bit more of her in this movie. I must admit, I thought she would maybe have had a bit of a larger role. You know, she did have a really good role in this, but I did want a little bit more.
Never enough. The Greatest Showman reference. You got to have never enough.
Well done.
Apologies for my singing there. So yeah, she's back, but we also get the returns of all the good old dependables, like Ving Rhames and Simon Pegg, who's slowly but surely managed to work his way up the billing in these ones, from being a desk jockey in the third one to a field agent in the fourth one to becoming basically Ethan Hunt's sort of number two, Austin Powers. So were you glad to see sort of those guys back? I thought that, now this is just me, but I'm the guy who at the end of Toy Story 3 would have sacrificed Woody to save the others, you know, just because I'm a sick, sadistic person. But sometimes these films maybe need a little more sort of stakes, and sort of maybe sort of like killing off one of the sort of lesser characters or smaller members of the IMF might, you know, add to the story. I don't know about you, but
I think the problem sometimes with these movies is, and I'm sure they'll admit it themselves, regardless of how good and enjoyable they are, is, like, I think with this movie they said they started filming without a script. And I think with, like, a lot of the Mission Impossible movies, in particular probably the last three, and I know Macquarie and Cruise have spoken about this, is that they tend to think of, like, these, here's some big action set piece ideas, like a halo jump or climbing a tower or, you know, whatever really. And like then they'll start to build the film and set pieces around that. So those things are almost locked in, you know, they've got some visuals to go along with that, and then they start to generate outward. And I think sometimes like that's been missing. Like I think that's one of the best things about Mission Impossible 3. While I wasn't a big fan of the marriage plot, it added like really personal stakes to it. I think with this movie and then obviously Ghost Protocol, it's about nuclear weapons, and you know that it kind of, you know, it's all very dramatic, really, isn't it? And then like obviously Rogue Nation is a bit more personal as well. You know, it's these people are being kind of blackmailed and, you know, so on. And I think like that personal stakes just that makes it, sometimes you invest in these characters, and you know sometimes that we've, as much as great as Ethan Hunt is and all his sidekicks are, a lot of them sometimes are just the ciphers, and you know, to get us to these action set pieces that blow us all away and that we all marvel at. Like I'd be fine with them killing off someone. That would be good, you know, whether it's Simon Pegg's character or whether they follow through and, you know, did kill off his wife and say something like Ghost Protocol, for example. It's just needed to take it to that next level because, you know, especially by this point, you're vested in these characters on some level. Or, you know, I'm curious if anyone even knows what Simon Pegg's character is and the name of these movies. You're Jeremy Renner. Kill him off in like the pre-title sequence where they've got the, you know, the showdown for the nuclear weapons or something like that. Just you've got a big list of characters. They weren't afraid to kill them off in the first one, and that's one of the most memorable and awesome parts about that movie, is just like bang on, bang on, bang on. I like that. I like to see a bit of a return to that.
Yeah, no. Benji Dunn, that's Simon Pegg's character. Brandt is Jeremy Renner, and I think Ving Rhames is Luther Stickle, if I'm not mistaken.
That's right.
Great name. But no, I know what you mean. Yeah, it would add a bit more stakes, and yeah, I think it certainly worked with. I mean, like Infinity War this year. You know the constant threat that some of these characters aren't going to make it. It does sort of mean that you invest in more, in the fact that, you know, if anyone could die at any time, you then, you know, it increases the tension and stuff like that. And it just adds to the action sequences. And so for you, what was your favorite action sequence out of the movie?
Yeah, I really liked the helicopter fight. With the halo jump, I thought it was really. Obviously, that's the one that's hyped a lot, and it's on the side of all the buses and the promo pictures. And I'm not saying it's not good, but the problem with it is, and I think it's, you know, the amount of effort that they put into it. When you're watching this guy do a halo jump, you've got the crew that are doing the halo jump with them, and the amount of planning and takes, it must have been an incredible feat. But it feels a bit too augmented with CGI. There's different elements going on, which kind of takes you out of it. And that's the frustrating thing. I'd almost want it if it was sort of stripped down, bare, perhaps. But for me, the best one was, I loved the motorcycle chase. I thought that was really good, but I really enjoyed the helicopter chase. It's been a long time since I've seen one that good, and I thought it was really, excellent. And that whole kind of scene from the helicopter chase to the helicopters crashing and the fight that kind of unfolded from that, it was just such a tense 15 minutes of an action movie. It was just always going, getting a bit smaller and smaller. The helicopters are fighting, to then basically just a couple of guys slugging it out and then slugging it off on the side of a cliff again. It was really cool. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think for me, I did love the London sort of chase, just for the fact that the geography seemed to hold up, where sometimes films that are set in London but filmed by American crews can sometimes get it wrong. Obviously, the biggest one being Thor: The Dark World, with the infamous how many stops to Greenwich? 2 stops, and it's like, no, you're at Charing Cross, you need to go to Waterloo, then switch to the Jubilee line, and then blah blah blah. But no, I thought it was really good. Although part of me was wondering, he's coming out of St Paul's, but then he's going to the Tate Modern. He could have just taken the Millennium Bridge. But then I realised when saying it in my head, but the Millennium Bridge isn't covered, it wouldn't have allowed Tom Cruise to basically run through the top of buildings and then run along a bridge with a cover on it to then get to that side. So it was basically done for stunt purposes. So that's why the geography was slightly out in that one. But yeah, I'll give them a pass on that. But for me, I think my favourite sequence was the whole sort of Paris chase, which I thought was just fantastic. And it sort of reminded me of like Bourne and even like Ronin from the late 90s, which just have fantastic practical car chases. And this is like a truck chase, it turns into a car chase, it turns into a motorcycle chase, then has a bit of a foot chase. It's just the evolution of all that was just fantastic, and I thought it for me was one of the best sequences in the franchise, I think.
Yeah, and it's so cool. Like, again, Bond has done these things in the past few years and got some plaudits for it, but then retroactively, and we're not talking like Roger Moore era, we're talking like the Daniel Craig era, and it's made it look like, oh, I guess that was all right, yeah. But then it's like, it's maybe the new toy or something in it, but I really enjoyed that Paris scene. It's like it always goes that one little extra bit. It's like you can imagine like sort of Tom Cruise's energy gets maybe that extra 5-10 million that's needed to do these extra scenes. Like you can imagine them going in a script, right, it will go to this, and then it's like you'll have the truck chase and then a motorcycle chase, and that's it. And then you can imagine like the enthusiasm of Tom Cruise going, but yeah, that's what they expect, and then they won't expect just this little extra bit, this extra, surge of energy. And you can imagine his enthusiasm then going, yeah, well, okay, that add another 5-10 million onto the budget. Yeah, do what you want.
Yeah, no, it's like, I mean, I heard this thing this week about I think it was Ali Plum was interviewing Chris McQuarrie, and he was saying that, oh yeah, we started off without a script. And like Ali Plum does a double take and goes, I'm sorry, what? And it's like, I mean, I've seen films where they start without a script, and I'm mainly looking at the Pirates of the Caribbean, and you can basically kind of tell that they started without a script and we're making this up as we go along. To the credit of Chris McQuarrie and Tom Cruise, this doesn't look like it was made up on the go. This looks like they actually had a fully fleshed idea and followed it through to the end. I mean, obviously, yeah, you would build it around certain big action sequences. I mean, I'd hate to think what the insurance cover on this was. I mean, Tom Cruise is pretty much uninsurable, but somehow still gets to make these movies. But I mean, it's like, oh yeah, I want to jump out of a plane this year, and it's like, Tom, do you have to? And it's like, yes, I have to. And it has to be me. It has to be me. They'll know. They'll be able to tell if I don't do it. And it's like. But it's like, I think there was tweets sort of building up to that. It's sort of saying, Tom's been wanting to do this for a year, and you just got to wonder what he will do next. It's like Tom Cruise was home one day looking, and I was watching a film and Flatliners came on. I went, Chris, I want to do that next year. Do what? I want you to stop my heart and then restart it for real. And it's like, oh God, Tom, no. We can just fake it. It'll be fine. No one will have. I will know, and the audience will know. They will know. We have to do it for real. And all credit to him for continuing to do it, because I know when Mad Max came out, not to go on about Mad Max again, but there was a call back then when Fury Road came out to have stunt teams recognised at the Oscars for the work that they do. They're the one sort of major department on a film set that do not get any recognition at the Oscars. I think there's a separate sort of science, sort of like I don't know if it's like computer graphics, but there's a sort of stunt sort of category that's done at a different day, when sometimes they get to come on at the end and wave and sort of stuff like that, going, hey, we got our own awards. But they really need to create a category and honour these people at the main awards, because Mission Impossible is proof that if you take the time and effort to do these things and do them well and not rely on CGI, people will come out and people appreciate the effort that goes into it. CGI, yes, it can be great, but I mean, there's a lot of times when the CGI is not good and you can tell, and it can ruin a movie. But if you get excellent stunt coordinators who can do their job and do it properly, then that's worth 10 times more being able to see the actual people doing it than seeing something done in CGI, I think.
Yeah, and it is a disgrace and absolutely baffling that there is not an Oscar for Best Stunt. Why? I have no idea, but it's an absolutely stupid decision. Yeah,
so do you have any final thoughts on Mission Impossible Fallout before we head to the ranking?
Yeah, I'm just curious to know where it's going to go next. It'd be a good way to end it now, but it's not going to end. I think there's definitely one more in them. But I just don't know where they'll kind of go next. So, like, how much bigger can they go? Where can they go? Do they run the risk of doing a James Bond and going into space? And it's going to be interesting.
I think that's where the Fast and Furious franchise is going, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I'll be curious to see where they go, whether they make it more intimate. Perhaps like there's personal stakes. Like, you've got all these characters now, and if you're going to do this as perhaps like a final one, Tom Cruise at the top of his game, or still at the top of his game, go out that way, take away all this kind of base around him, make him a man sort of on his own, or linked up with Rebecca Ferguson's character. Whether you do something like that and kind of go down that way, something tense, something like a License to Kill, that I would be real interested about, like that, just a really intimate, dark ending to something like Mission Impossible. You can still have big set pieces in it, but make the story small and cut out perhaps some of these smaller characters that are somewhat disposable, and I don't mean that in a hopefully negative way, but people aren't going to cry if some of these people vanish off. Use that and go for it. That's my feeling.
I certainly agree to some extent. I mean, I don't know how many times I've lost track during the franchise of how many times that Tom Cruise's Ethan Hunt has been disavowed by the IMF and gone rogue as an agent. So I'm not sure if they could go with that again before people go, all right, okay. But I mean, certainly it has to be Tom Cruise's story. I mean, I know there was rumours that they were sort of gearing up Jeremy Renner to take over the franchise at one point, but he seems to be the sort of nearly man always a bridesmaid but never the bride in these. He nearly had a Bourne franchise, but that didn't happen, and then this one, and but at least everyone was saying, where's Hawkeye this time? Once again, where's Hawkeye? Where's Jeremy Renner this time round? So maybe he could come back next time, but I think maybe strip it down. I know that Tristan and the Girl on Nerd Nuptial, their episode which dropped yesterday, was talking about Mission Impossible as well, and they were expressing a desire to see them go back more possibly to sort of the more sort of espionage sort of style, and more the sort of gadgets and things rather than the over-reliance on the big action sequences. I think the big action sequences are fine and I enjoy them, but maybe go back to more of the sort of spy things. I think maybe if someone had only seen this film, they wouldn't really know that the IMF were originally sort of reliant on sort of spy techniques and espionage, beyond the masks which they use. They didn't really use a huge amount of technology apart from a few trackers and stuff like that. So maybe that sort of gadget sort of style might be quite interesting film to go back to and explore in the next one.
And not to bang on about James Bond again, but like that's something James Bond often finds itself, like it goes so far, you know, whether it's something like a Moonraker and then it autocorrects to something like For Your Eyes Only, you know, you have these movies, you know, You Only Live Twice, and then you follow that up with something like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, Die Another Day leads into Casino Royale. You know, Spectre, I'm hoping will have that sort of same effect. Like, you can only expand so far, and then you burst, and then you kind of retract back to what it was. And like, you know, I think the first Mission Impossible movie, you know, I saw that at the cinema when I was a kid in Aberdeen, actually, and you know, it was a movie that went a bit over my head as a young kid, but like it seems more and more in the past few years, really, and as well as people always do these rewatches before a new franchise one, and it seems that first Mission Impossible, in a way that perhaps it never has been, seems to rank people's list as their favourite one. And I think people are clamouring for a little bit of that. As much as we enjoy the spectacle, it'd be good to see Ethan Hunt and see how IMF actually works again. You know, it's something that's just sort of in and around, and it's just a name, really. Like, it feels like it's just these guys and, you know, a handler basically. So yeah, I'm curious I'd be the same, yeah, kind of pull back and see where we go.
Yeah, no, I think maybe they could actually go back and remake the first one with Tom Cruise in the John Voight, Jim Phelps role, and sort of start it off with a new thing for a new team. But you know, if he did that, then Tom Cruise would probably demand to do the Eurotunnel stunt for real, with a real helicopter going along the Eurotunnel. He wouldn't accept CGI for that anymore. But I think I know. What you
imagine
mean,
that CGI blade being removed.
Yeah, I think what we're talking about here is the moment when a franchise jumps the shark, or with Indiana Jones when they nuked the fridge. And everyone basically went, that was a moment where they checked out the franchise. And if they are eventually going to do another Indiana Jones film, they need to pare it back and go back to what it was, with Raiders of the Lost Ark and stuff like that, with the practical effects. But speaking of jumping the shark, I know that the Staith has the Meg coming out. Perhaps
I can't wait for that movie.
It looks crazy, but I can imagine that Tom Cruise might want to jump the shark in real life. He might want to do like an underwater Mission Impossible where he actually has a real shark and jumps over it or something for real. You know, let's make this happen, Tom. Do an underwater Mission Impossible with submarines and sharks and stuff like that. That's what people want to see. And get the Statham into the mix. Get the Stath to join the IMF.
Oh God, yes. And the one thing I would say as well is I don't think either of us think that Mission Impossible has jumped the shark by any kind of means
not yet.
yet.
Certainly
but
not yet.
We're preempting potentially jumping the shark by just going perhaps so big that it kind of like, oh okay, that kind of wears off a little bit. Like, mix up, it feels like kind of Fallout, Rogue Nation and Ghost Protocol are in and around sort of the same kind of style of movie, that whereas those first three are a wildly different sort of trilogy of movies. You know, you've got an espionage movie, you've got the John Woo movie, and then you've got kind of the J.J. Abrams action adventure romp, and it sort of feels like the past three have kind of been in and around the style of that kind of Mission Impossible 3, that they really struck something there. I'd like to just kind of mix up a little bit, and you know, or else if they keep expanding the way they are, it's just going to get a bit silly.
Yeah, no, so on that note, since we're talking about all 6 films at once, I guess it's time to rank them. And do you want to go first, or shall I go first with it? Or do you want to do
we can
6,
rotate.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1 or whatever?
Sounds good to me.
Okay, so in last place, which Mission Impossible film have you got?
Dougray Scott's vehicle, the movie that denied him the chance to be Wolverine, Mission Impossible 2.
That is basically the one thing that people took away. Anyone mentions Mission Impossible 2, it's normally about the fact that that's the film that cost Dougray Scott the Wolverine gig. And actually, I should probably have it higher, because it is also my number 6, but I should probably have it higher just because of that fact, because it gave us Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. And
I'm also frustrated as well. Like, this is the only Mission Impossible movie I've never got the chance to see on the big screen, because it was rated 15. I was too young at the time, and I wasn't able to go. Yeah,
really?
It was a 15, at the time, yeah.
Wow, I'd completely forgotten that. I can't even remember why it would have been a 15.
I know, it's absolutely crazy. Like, that is a wild swing from the first one, which is PG, to a 15 rated Mission Impossible.
You know, I should probably watch Mission Impossible 2 again. I don't think I've seen it since it first came out in the cinema. Maybe I've been overly too harsh on it. Maybe if I rewatched it, you know, it's got the doves and stuff. You know, Face Off was great. You know, maybe I've been too harsh on this one. I might give it a rewatch one time, I think.
Yeah, it's worth a watch. Like, you watch it, you think at the beginning, yeah, this is pretty good. I'm getting into this. It's kind of got a good vibe to it. It does feel like it's kind of in that Pierce Brosnan style kind of movie, but yeah, it's not too bad. It's worth a watch. It's interesting in its own right. According to the BBFC, it was past 15 for frequent strong violence, and the cut was past uncut.
I see. And I think Mission Impossible 2 was the only one to have a rock band do a version of the theme tune as well. It had its own theme song.
Yeah. You the other day, obviously, for your run, you asked which music do you like from films that really help push you on. Get that song onto your running playlist. It's worth it. Even the Mission Impossible theme, it's like a minute. I always go for Light the Fuse from Ghost Protocol by Michael Giacchino. It's about a minute and a half theme tune version. Well worth adding to that as well.
I definitely will. I've got a run tomorrow morning, so I will add them on tonight for that. So at number 5, what have you got?
I have Mission Impossible 3.
Mission Impossible 3, interesting. I have the original Mission Impossible at number 5. Just because it was so long ago, I haven't rewatched it, and also I didn't really get into the franchise until about number 3, so that's why I've got that one down at number 5. So why have you got number 3 at 5?
I think it's good. The problem is, like with these ones, it's also interchangeable now in these next band of movies. You know, 2 is all the way out there in the distance. Like 3, I think, is a really good movie. It's got some good action set pieces. Philip Seymour Hoffman is amazing. I just find the love plot, it's just a bit cliche, really. I never really vested into it. You know, being there as low as it isn't a kind of slight on the movie. It's just that's just the day of the week it was on. If you ask me again in an hour, it might be higher.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of these things, especially when I know we here at the Nerd Party, we do this a lot. That if there's a big film coming out, we normally like to try and rewatch everything in advance. Just because, sometimes, you know, the plots are so complicated, you need to kind of refresh yourself to what's going on. But this one sort of crept up on us and we didn't get the chance to rewatch everything. But yeah, so Mission Impossible was at my number 5. Your number 4, what did you...
My number 4 is number 4. It's a movie I was blown away by in IMAX. I think is such an easy watch. It's really good. It's really fun. But I just think the storyline just maybe isn't as strong as the others. It's got some great moments, you know, the Kremlin exploding, the prison escape, climbing the building, the ending in the car park garage. Really good fun. I just don't really remember it having much in the way of a memorable plot, which is it's the only reason it perhaps lets it down a little bit. Yeah,
no, Ghost Protocol's at number 4 for me as well. I mean, yeah, it's got the action set pieces such as like the climbing of the Burj Khalifa, but for me, yeah, the villain was a bit weak, and overall the story didn't really hold up. But it was one of the films which this was probably up there with the point when I really started to get into the franchise, though, as an action spectacle, because I went to see it on IMAX, but I actually only went to see it on IMAX because it had the Dark Knight Rises opening sequence and tagged on in front of it in Glasgow. So that's the only reason I went to see it, and that's the point when I sort of became properly invested in the franchise. So at number 3, I think
it was the turning point for the series in general. And my number 3 is number 1. I'd love to hear your thoughts as you rewatch it. It is a movie of its time, but I really like that espionage style of the movie. It's really just kicks ass, and it's great seeing all these people taken out in the beginning. And I saw this movie at the cinema as a kid, and I have fond memories of not having a single clue what the hell was going on as a 9-year-old, I think, when it came out.
Yeah, no, I think there's one of those sort of entertainment exchange places in town that I think it's got like one of the box sets of all 5 movies out at the moment. So I think I'm going to go buy that for a £5 and give everything a rewatch again. But my number 3 is number 3, and the reason it's up there is basically purely because of Philip Seymour Hoffman's villain. I can't remember all of the action sequences. I remember it as a few good ones, but for me, it has that great bit in the sort of the Florida Keys on the bridge and stuff like that. But for me, it's purely the villain, and just how good Philip Seymour Hoffman was is the fact that it's up there, and also the fact that it sort of kickstarted the franchise again when it looked like it might have been on its way out as well. So
definitely,
and that means we've both got the same two films in the top two, but are they going to be in the same position? At number 2, I have Rogue Nation.
I have Fallout.
Oh, we've been quite different on this. This is good. This is good. So yeah, I've got Rogue Nation. For me, I think for me, really, Rogue Nation and Fallout are fairly interchangeable, and it will probably in the future it will come down to which one I've seen most recently will be up at the top. But I think purely because I rewatched it recently. It's where, for me, it's the whole sort of story. Ilsa Faust sort of introduction, that fantastic sort of opera sequence, the sort of underwater sequence as well, and the start of this syndicate plot, which then plays out into the final one. I thought was just it was the high point of the franchise up until last week for me. What about yourself?
Yeah, as much as I enjoyed Fallout, I think there was something about Rogue Nation. Just it took a lot of the elements that are getting the plaudits in Fallout and kind of kickstarted them. I think Rebecca Ferguson has such a great role in Rogue Nation. It's that bigger one. I think Lane's a great villain in that. I just really like, I like the motorcycle chase so much in Rogue Nation. Just that bit where you just see the motorcycle smacking off and falling off the precipice. So cool. Is Alec Baldwin. I just think it's such an enjoyable romp of a movie, and I really enjoy the scope and the scale of the plot, the opera house scene. It reminded me it made me think of this is the film that Quantum of Solace could have been. And not to go on about bloody James Bond, but it's the classic
Stop
thing.
Getting
Why are people
Bond
comparing?
wrong?
Why are people comparing women all the time? It's why are men comparing these spy movies? It's with, I suppose, with the Scottish twist as well, I Spy. But yeah, it's I just think Rogue Nation is just so cool. And again, I'm the same. It probably could be any other days like this, and Fallout could easily switch again in future, and that's no bad thing.
I know, just you talking about the Rogue Nation motorcycle chase, it's just reminded me of that moment where you can see Tom Cruise's knee scrape the ground and him look down and go, ooh, ouch. It's just one of those moments. It's how fast is he going? 100 miles an hour and whatever. And it's oh, he can do it. It's Tom Cruise. He can do whatever he wants. It's fine. But yeah, no. So that's our ranking of the Mission Impossible films. So as you can probably tell, highly recommended that you go on and catch it on the biggest screen possible. It's on IMAX everywhere at the moment. Unfortunately, over here in the UK, it's on IMAX only for another week or so, because we finally get Ant-Man and the Wasp out in a couple of days' time, and we'll be back to review that next week. But before then, Lee, if people want to talk about Mission Impossible and sort of tell you where your ranking should have been, or possibly talk about where the Bond franchise needs to go next, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Lee_Nostromo, and I just want to say thank you to all the people people have reached out in the past few weeks and said that how much they seem to be enjoying the show and work that we're doing, and we seem to have had a lot of Stargate fans get in touch over the past few days, and the numbers that we seem to be getting for our interview with Joseph Malozzi is pretty nuts. It's really, we should rebrand this as a Stargate podcast, it seems, but no, it's been really cool to hear from people. Sometimes you think, you make these things and you put them out there, and you just think, oh, I hope people are listening. And it's been really cool to hear people getting in touch and sharing it, and kind of giving us their ideas as well. So kind of in the next few weeks we'll have some of those ideas kind of on the episode. So yeah, thank you to everyone that's been getting in touch and sharing and liking, subscribing. It really does mean a lot. Absolutely.
And we've had a few sort of suggestions for future top 5 listing episodes. So if you do have anything that you'd like to hear us debate and argue over, you can tweet us at Lee_Nostromo, or at Champ Celluloid, or at Join Nerd Party. And you catch me, as I said, on Twitter at Champ Celluloid, or catch my reviews on championshipcelluloid.blogspot.com. But we'll catch you next week for our big review of Ant-Man and the Wasp. But until then, this podcast will self-destruct in 5 seconds. Dun, 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 dun. See you next time.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.